Welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie authors on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberg. I write short fiction with the pen name J. Nichols.
And I'm Christina Catane, and I write Christian fiction.
And that's the end of our host introductions because we are halved. Our host count is down by 2. Womp womp. As you know, we've been praying for Rhonda for quite some time. She's going through some personal stuff. And also, we're missing Jen. We do covet your prayers for her situation as well. And we thank you for your continued support. So because of that, we're doing a special episode. It's currently 8 p.m. That's right, 8 at night. And we are recording this episode so that we can play it live for you on Friday morning. And you'll still be around, right, Tina?
Yes, I will be in the chat. So all our chatters I will still be responding to the things that you say.
Yeah, and it's tough because I miss them right now. Usually in our chat column, we have some boisterous and busy conversation happening by now this far into the show. But we look forward to being live with you again very soon, and we thank you for your patience. Very soon does not, however, mean the Friday after Thanksgiving. That is a given that we will be off on that day, but hopefully we'll be live with you the Friday after that. Right, Tina?
Yep.
Okay, if you like the Christian Indie Writers Podcast and you want to know when we're doing random things like going live at 8 o'clock at night, you really should join our Facebook group. It's a really great group over there. There's plenty of support, encouragement, and inspiration during the week-long gap between episodes. So be sure to run over there and join that. And we're going to start this episode, just like every other episode, with the What's Up segment, where we go around the table. No, look at one another and say,
am I looking the right way?
What's up with you? So what's up with you tonight, Tina?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know. Like, my life is just lifey right now.
Life is lifey. Busy? Are you busy?
Yeah, it just seems like I can't get caught up. My cousin came into town, and because my cousin was coming into town, my husband decided to do the floors in the girls' room early because they were going to be staying in there. We had been saving up to get the carpets replaced with wood floors. So he went ahead and did that. So everything from the girls' room went into my office. Everything. And this is a 7-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Oh, no.
Not to mention all the random junk that I had been storing in their closet. And I could barely even get in my office.
Oh.
Much less do any writing or thinking or anything. It was like I have just been feeling like all weird about anything I have to do because I can't get in my office. And when I come in here, it just looks like a cluttered mess and it's just hard to even concentrate. So I did get all of their stuff out of here, but now I have all this random junk that I was storing in their closet and other stuff that I threw in here. Because it just seemed to be the junk collector room for a couple of weeks.
Do you remember those days when you wondered what life would be like when your nest was empty and your kids were grown, and now your little nest is full again?
Yeah, my daughter's still here every weekend, and her daughter and my other granddaughter, so it's not really empty all the time. But I do enjoy it when they go home and it's quiet.
Yeah. Did you see my internet just flicker? I hope it holds out for us. Did you see that?
Yeah, you kind of went a little warbly a little bit, but I understood what you were saying. So,
well, I hope our audience also understood what I was saying, and I hope we make it through the rest of this episode.
Me too. So what's up with you?
I have a stunning example of girl math for our audience and for you.
Okay.
Now, I have situational depression, situational anxiety disorder. I don't remember the words that the medical professional used, but basically, like it's a sort of a mental adjustment disorder. That's what it was. And so because my life was all akimbo, I would have like a depressive situation. Well, my life is still a little akimbo. And so occasionally I just feel like maybe I need to go back to that doc and get some meds. Maybe, or maybe I don't. I don't know. And I have these discussions with my friends. And my one friend said, why don't you try some SAMe? Have you heard of SAMe?
No.
Well, SAMe is a synthetic supplement to mimic something already in the human body. And that's as much as I remember about my learning path, right? And so I was like, well, maybe I'll get some and try it. So I looked and they were like $40. And I
Oh no.
like, I know. And I was like, well, maybe it would be worth it, even for the placebo effect. So I kind of like put a pin in that idea. And I thought, well, I don't know. Maybe I'll spend the 40, maybe I won't. Meanwhile, I had this air fryer I had bought at Aldi. Okay. And I didn't like it because it was too small. So I took it back to the store. Well, I had bought it on clearance for 20, but they refunded me full price 40. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
here I had $40 and I didn't buy the SAMe, which was $40, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, that made this guitar that was on sale for $89 practically free.
That is girl math.
Like a prime example. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I had wanted a 3/4 size guitar for a while because I just want something I could grab up and play without feeling like I'm getting all around my big old guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have to really work on my chord shapes. Like most people learn a C chord super fast, and it's one of the first chords they learn. But for me, doing the C chord, and plus I still haven't learned to do bar chords. So I'm thinking that if I try on this little baby one, then what I learned can translate into the bigger one. So
Fun.
that's
I
my
took
what's up.
I took guitar lessons for about 2 weeks when I don't know, I was in elementary school.
Yeah. It
And
didn't last,
my
huh?
fingers got sore and I didn't want to do it anymore.
Oh man, that's really true. But I'm happy with it, and this is what I told myself. If I play it and it makes me as happy as the SAMe would have,
There you go.
there's a win. That's a win-win, right? So
You
I
know what
just
I
try to
thought was
give.
going to make me happy? A new set of knives. And my
Ooh,
mother has Cutco knives and they're really nice. And I was thinking,
yeah.
I think I want some Cutco knives. So I went online to
Uh
look at
huh.
the cut. Yeah, no, I don't want Cutco knives at all. No.
Why are they expensive?
Oh yeah. Yes, very, very expensive. Like I could buy a used car for that amount of money.
Wow. Are they worth it though? Do you think? Like, are they lifetime guarantee or something?
I got a pair of Swiss Army knives, and they're like kitchen knives. They're Swiss Army knives. I got a
Buy
set.
one, get one free, just pay for shipping.
I would have I would have got 5 knives of the Cutco for $879.
Wow. Well, I mean, okay, so
Or
like,
I got 15 of the Swiss Army knives for $200. And
listen,
I feel like
yeah,
they cut what I need them to cut.
yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
I do know what you're saying because I feel like sometimes you imagine that a really good knife would be life changing, especially if you do cook a lot, right? And you look at like the chef's knives and you think, do I want that? But then you know what? Then I see them like sharpening them and taking care of them, and I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for that kind of commitment. It's like getting a pet.
yeah, my mom has this thing like with her knives. You can't
Yeah.
put them in the sink.
Oh
You
no.
can't put them in the dishwasher. You have to rinse them, wash them, dry them, and lay them on a paper towel to dry completely immediately after using. And she's very adamant about how this is. Now I know why. Just
Yeah, it makes
because
sense
she's got
now.
like the big set. I was only looking at 5 of them.
That reminds me of, you know how like you people who sew, you don't use their sewing shears on anything but fabric. You know what I
Right.
mean? Well, my mom had this pair of scissors in our junk drawer. They had a black handle. They had black handles, and they were like stainless steel, just like painted black handles, you know? And those scissors were in our junk drawer for like ever. And then one day I went to my friend's house and she was going to show me how to quilt. And I saw junk drawer scissors and I picked them up and I started cutting with them, not fabric. And she got so mad at me because those were her fabric scissors. I don't know why Cutco knives just made me think of that.
I don't either.
I was
And
like, these are junk drawer scissors in my house. I'm so sorry.
do I really need to spend $800 to cut cucumbers and onions and lettuce? Like,
I mean, they had better like make the food like they had better have flavor infused into them.
yeah, they don't.
I don't know though. How did you like using them? You use them much when you were there? Like, were they good?
Yeah, I
knives?
really liked them, and the knives that I've had forever and ever and ever, and I've
Yeah.
had to keep sharpening them, and then the time between sharpenings was getting shorter and shorter and shorter, and I just knew it was time to get some new knives. But yeah, my taste is much richer than my pocketbook.
Yeah, yeah, I hear that. Yeah, we're living in the same world. All right, so that's what's up. Now we should probably move into the topic du jour. Let's see what's up in the chat. Oh, nothing.
The little eyeball up in the corner does say that there's one person watching us on YouTube.
Well, hello, faithful friend. It's probably me. I'm probably over there. Just kidding. Whoever you are, we hope that you're having a beautiful day. And whoever you are in the chat, if this is Friday morning when you're seeing this, I miss you. And hopefully I'll be able to be live with you again soon to hear your what's up. Okay, so our topic today, Tina, is an interesting one, I think. And why don't you say what the topic title is, and then we can maybe talk about why we're going to talk about this.
Okay. I'm sorry, but you cut out. Did you ask me to tell the topic title? You were a little choppy, and I wasn't sure.
Tell the topic title. Yes, tell the topic title.
Every story is a love story.
Yes, and we're sort of presenting this as a challenge or as something, if you have high intellect, that you will want to ponder and possibly discuss with friends in your real life or maybe even in the Facebook group. So we chose this topic because the idea of expressing love for your friends and love for your family and love for the world in general came to mind as we were trying to figure out how to accommodate each other in our schedules, in our needs, and in all of our life situations. Just sort of brought the ideal of love to mind, right, Tina?
Yeah.
So the first thing we want to do is define what we're talking about when we talk about love.
Okay, so there's more than one different kind of love. There's more than one different kind of love. That was horrible English.
Well, and I wonder too if it's the same in, like, I don't know, other languages.
Yeah. Well, like, I know that in English we have the word love. And then
that's it.
And if we want to qualify love, then we add an adjective to it. So we might say, I love you with a brotherly love, or I love you with a passionate love, or I love you with a perfect love. But in Greek, which is we're going to the Greek because this is the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, and the New Testament was written in Greek. And there's actually 4 different Greek words for love in the Bible. So do you want me to say what they are, or do we want to slow down a little bit? I don't want to get too far ahead.
Well, why don't I maybe say them and then you can talk about what they are. So the first kind of love on our list is philia. And listeners, put your thinking caps on and think of where you've heard of that. And Tina's going to reveal in the answer. So philia is the first kind of love, right?
Right. And I think the clue that will give you a better hint is it's spelled Phila. And it is brotherly love. So Philadelphia, Delphi is the Greek word for city. So Philadelphia literally means city of brotherly love. You just thought it was a friendly place, didn't you?
And a delicious cream cheese.
Yeah. You know, Philadelphia cream cheese is actually made in Philadelphia, New York.
Really?
Yeah, not in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Well, there's your fun fact of the week,
I
courtesy of
actually
the Church.
I actually used to live in Philadelphia, New York. And when
Oh.
we had this horrible ice storm, I don't know, Amber was 3, I think. So that would have been 91.
Mhm.
Um, and we all had to go live in the VFW hall for a week. And the dairy farmers would bring their what do you call them, generators from when they would swap them out. One of them would go milk their cows, and when they were done, they bring their generator. The next guy would take his back and go milk his cows, and that's how we had lights and heat at the VFW club in Philadelphia, New York,
That's
which was
very
a
nice.
very small town. I don't even think they had a stoplight.
That is an example of brotherly love, isn't it?
It is.
Or would that be our later? Let's talk about that when we get there. Okay, so Philadelphia, that's brotherly love. So, like, if you're gonna friend zone a guy you're dating, you're gonna be like, "I feel like you," right? Like
Yeah.
it's not a romantic or passionate love. It's a
Right.
love that you like a platonic.
Hmm.
Or is this the familial love, or did we not get there yet?
Familial love is a different word.
All right. Well, maybe it's next. Where's my outline? Let's see. The next kind of love in the Greek, which is in the Bible also. Oh, where is philia in the Bible? Where like do you see that kind of love?
Well, it's there quite a bit, but my favorite place, and we really got to talk about agape at the same time if we're going to talk about my favorite place
All
to
right.
find
So
feeling.
agape.
Agape. I'm
Okay.
probably most Christians are familiar with the word agape, and this is the
Mm-hmm.
unconditional, selfless, always thinking about the other love of God.
It seems like a very subtle differentiation because if you have brotherly love, like the love that the farmers showed for everybody who needed their generator, sort of feels a little bit agape. So, is there
Yeah, but this is
overlap?
like the perfect selfless, bleed, suffer, and die for the other
So, if the
kind of
farmer
love.
was a little grumpy about having to use his generator to keep everybody alive, that wouldn't be agape love?
No, it wouldn't.
All right. So, you're going to say your favorite use of phila.
Right, because it's philia, and agape are both in the account of Peter and Jesus walking on the beach after the resurrection. And Peter had denied him 3 times, and Jesus had asked him, Peter, do you love me? But what Jesus said, actually in the Greek, was, Peter, do you agape me? And it's like agapeo. It's like, because when you want to make a word have deeper meaning, you add a suffix or a prefix on it. So, and then Peter replied to him, you know that I philia you.
Hmm.
And then Jesus asked him the second time and said, Peter, do you agape me? Um, and Peter replied, you know that I philia you. And then the third time Jesus says, Peter, do you philia me? And then that's when Peter said, Lord, you know all things, and you know that I philia you.
So why do you think that Peter wasn't picking up the clues? The first, like, I don't understand the
I don't
interaction. Help me.
I don't know if he wasn't picking up the clues or if he just knew that he did not have that selfless bleed, suffer, and die, always think about the other kind of love, because he had just denied Christ, like in a social situation. It wasn't even.
Then he says that he does agape him.
No, no, he 3 times Peter says, I philia you. And finally, Jesus changed his question in the third question and said, do you philia me?
And then Peter said,
You know all things, and you know that I philia you.
hmm.
And see, this was before the day of Pentecost. And I truly believe that we cannot agape anybody without the Holy Spirit. That is the love that is the fruit of the Spirit, and the only way you can do it is if you have the Holy Spirit.
Wow. I love that. Okay. And so I guess we've sort of moved on to talking about agape, and that's all over the Bible as well.
Yes.
Do you
And
have another instance kind of plucked out for us?
no, not really, because I feel like we've heard this 100,000 times. If you've been in the church, if you've
Yeah.
been in the church any amount of time, you know that agape is the perfect selfless love of God. And I really like my favorite one of my favorite preachers, Dr. Manley, says it's bleed, suffer, and die, and never think about yourself kind of love. And
Mm,
if you think about it, in the Bible, when the Holy Spirit is speaking, he is always speaking about the Son or the Father. And when
mm.
Jesus is speaking, he's always speaking about the Father mostly, and sometimes the Holy Spirit. And when the Father is speaking, he's always speaking about the Son and the Spirit.
Nice.
And even
Oh,
when Jesus
wonderful.
when Jesus refers to himself as the Son of Man, he's saying like things like, I'm here to do the will of my Father. My food is this,
Mm,
to do the will of my Father. These things that I don't do of my own. That is the Father through me that are doing these things. So like they're always deferring to the other in their little community of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
wow. That's great. I'm really happy that we're talking about this. Okay, and so we've got agape love and we've got filial love, and then we have eros, right?
Right. This is the one that Jennifer likes to write about, and all of you romance writers. And it
Yeah.
is it is the root word for the word erotic, but it does not have to be erotic. It is romantic love. So the
Mm-hmm.
love between a husband and a wife, between two people falling in love, that kind of love.
Now you said, are there four? Are those the only three in the Bible? And then we've got
No,
the extra
there's
ones.
there's seven Greek words for love, but there's only four in the Bible.
All right. And the last one that's in the Bible is storge. Am I saying that right?
Yes, and that is familial love. So mothers to children, and children to mothers, and aunts and uncles and cousins and siblings.
Yes. And I brought up the word filial because I was confused. And Tina pointed out that that's not the same language, right?
No, like that is Latin.
All right. Because I remember learning that phrase from reading Jane Austen or that kind of book anyway. And I love that there was a word that was special for like mother love or familial love. So I was confused. So this storge word, do you know, is there an instance of the Bible that comes to mind?
Yeah, yeah, it's I can't think of like the actual address, but there's places where Paul calls us his brothers and sisters, and he says he loves us, so that he would use that word.
Okay, so now that we know what we're talking about, we're going to actually finally get around to the premise that every story is a love story.
Yes.
And you say yes, almost sort of emphatically, like you absolutely agree. Had you really thought about this before we started talking about it? What are your thoughts, Tina, just in general?
I don't know that I like actually thought about it in that context, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't write romances, but there is romance in the stories that I write. And
Mm-hmm.
there's always some kind of love at play in when you have human interactions. Whether
Mm-hmm.
it's love for a mother or a father or a child or a dog, or romantic love, or love of self.
Love of self. I just thought of that because as you were talking, I was thinking about the primary motivating force in a lot of characters' lives. It's so funny as if they're real people, but they are motivated a lot of times by love. And that's what I was thinking as you were speaking. And then I was like, even on a hero's journey or a quest, sometimes it is the love of self, right? It is I think I'm a big shot or I'm important or whatever that is the driver to get the character up off his seat and moving.
Yeah. Like you could go at it from two different viewpoints actually. You could have a protagonist who who doesn't feel good about themselves, who through
Mm.
their character arc in the course of their story learns to love themselves.
Oh, wow.
Or you
Yeah.
could have a antagonist who has far too much love for himself and not
Mm.
enough love for others. And that causes them to do things that are harmful.
Like the wizard in The Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my contention is that every story is a love story. And I mean, why would anyone be able to make that case, you know? And I think that it's because as we've been sitting here talking, it turns out that like the love is woven throughout, because I cannot even think of a story that doesn't have any love. Possibly The Catcher in the Rye.
I don't
I
even
just
remember that one. I know I read it, but I don't remember what it's about.
Well, you know what? That's very much a love of self book. It's basically a kid who's kind of flunking out of school, and he kind of
Is he
goes on
playing
a
baseball in a rye field? Because that's
in part of it, yeah, like that's why it's called that, right?
okay.
And I think
Because
even
that's
that's
what
a
I picture.
memory.
So I didn't know if I was losing my mind.
But now that I think about it, he does love his little sister. And really, I think it's his overwhelming desire to not disappoint the people that have expectations of him, you know.
Hmm.
And I think that those tumultuous years when we're growing up and trying to figure out how to be an adult after being a child, you know, would you say you can find a love story in there, Tina, or is
Oh,
my theory
sure.
falling apart? Yeah.
Because I have a 2-year-old granddaughter and
Mm-hmm.
I have a 7-year-old granddaughter. And my 2-year-old granddaughter, the world revolves around her.
Hmm.
Like she does not have any concept of other people other than what they are for me. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like mom is comfort. Dad is comfort and fun. Grandma is treats. Like like what it's all about what her needs being met and her desires and her wants and everything revolves around her. And we're not mad at her for that because
Right.
we know that that is her developmental level. And that
Mm-hmm.
as she grows, she's going to grow out of that. And then comes my 7-year-old granddaughter, who, like, I can't even tell you how many times she comes up and just hugs me and says, "I love you." Like all the time. And we'll just be
Aww.
driving in the car and she'll just be saying, "I just love my whole family." So she's like she's in love with everybody right now. Not
Mm.
romantically,
Mm-hmm.
but she's discovered this love for others in her
Mm.
stage of development. And as we grow, our love of self and our love of others is supposed to mature together. And in order to be healthy, we love our neighbor as ourselves.
And I
Um,
think that you're making a good point because all of these coming of age stories is trying to sort those things out, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And when we have trauma in our lives or something that happens, and usually in a story, there's something traumatic that happens,
Mm-hmm.
and that skews that either the love of others or the love of self.
Hmm. Well, okay. Now, what about something like Your Murder Mystery? Like, could the argument be made that that's a love story, or does my case fall apart here finally?
Well, my detective loves justice.
Oh boy.
And he loves the victims. Like he wants justice for the victims because of his overwhelming compassion and empathy for them, which you could
Hmm.
argue is love.
Yes.
Now
Well,
I wrote a
mhm.
thing for our sprint today
Yeah.
that I think is a challenge. I think it's a
Hmm.
challenge to find a love story in
All right.
what I
That'll
wrote
be
today. But
fun.
it is definitely a love, like a not a good kind of love
Hmm.
that's in this story.
Well, I really want to get to the sprints because you know that's my favorite part, but I feel like I want to ask you that if I lost it. We're talking story. Oh, the love of justice. So how would you categorize that kind of love? Is that a kind of that love of justice? You know what I mean? That kind of theoretical love of a concept or love of justice.
Repeat the question because you were breaking up a little bit in the middle of it,
Oh
and
no.
I didn't hear it exactly.
Well, you said that your detective loves justice. So if you're
Mhm.
going to put that in the Greek, which of the loves would you pick?
Oh, in the Greek. Um, I don't know. That's a good one.
Yeah.
It might be one of the other kinds of loves that are in the Bible. I don't
Oh.
know. I'd have to go back and look at them and look at
Yeah,
their
let me look
definition.
at that list. Yeah, let's see.
But
Pragma? No. That is love that has matured over time. So pragma would be people who've been married for a really long time and are experiencing that special kind of love. There's ludus, but that's playful love, Ludus. And then mania? No. Well,
I
that's
just
an
feel like
interesting question.
it's kind of like a love of neighbor kind of thing. And, and
Mm.
so maybe a form of agape because his love for the victims is what drives his love for justice, but also his own story, where he lost his own daughter,
Yeah.
also drives that. So, and so maybe it's not. I mean, maybe it's more of a need than a love, but I still think it could be argued that it's love.
I agree because that makes my case stronger instead of weaker. So of course that's the way. What about the character types from the previous episode that we talked about? You remember
Mhm.
from the
The
auto
thematic
trip?
characters and the other one,
Yeah. And how do they factor when you're thinking about this concept of love and your story?
right? Well, I think that maybe the core characters are that's their role in the story, and I think you
Mm.
can use love to develop their character. So, like,
Oh.
the relationship character could very well have brotherly love. Maybe they're a mentor. Maybe they have family love for the antagonist for the protagonist. Maybe they're a lover of the maybe it's Eros, you know?
Mm.
So it could be any of those. The distraction character is acting when like it's I have heard it recently said that jealousy comes out of pride, and pride is actually comes from a lack of self-worth.
Hmm. Well, that's
And it was
interesting
like a
too.
lot that's like a whole episode in and of itself. So, but if the distraction character is trying to lead people astray,
Mm-hmm.
it could be because of their own lack of certainty about themselves, and it comes out as pride, and then it shows up as jealousy.
Hmm. Well, that's very interesting. And as you're talking, I'm wondering how I struggle to find words and to figure out how in the world a novel could be 80,000 80,000 pages, 80,000 words long. And it's possible that if there's somebody out there who's struggling with that and wondering what sorts of things would build out a story and not feel like a waste of space, is to examine the love story of each of those characters that you have and to see if the plot can be enriched and your world be more real to your reader if you explore how they love and who they love and what they love.
Hmm. And really, why do we read books but to
Mm.
experience love
Mm.
in all its forms?
Yeah, that's very good. I think that might be a good note to kind of end the topic itself on.
Yeah,
But before we go on, I want to like go back in time to the what's up. Tina, it was your birthday, wasn't it?
it was. Yes,
Happy birthday. Did you
it
do
was the
anything fun?
anniversary of my 38th birthday.
Did you do anything fun?
No, we went out to eat.
Ooh.
And we just went to a diner because I know, because I'm on this strict eating regimen, and I know that I could get a large salad with steak on it, and that it
Mmm.
would be in the right proportions of what I'm supposed to have. So that we just went up the street to a diner for my birthday.
Well, happy birthday to
And I
you.
did get myself a knife set, a Swiss Army knife set. It actually says Swiss Army on it, but they're not pocket knives. They're kitchen knives.
And with that, we have come full circle.
Hmm.
Yes. All right. Well, thanks for sharing about your birthday, and thanks for teaching me a little bit about biblical love. I think that even if we can't firmly say that every single story is a love story, many of I cannot think of a book that doesn't have any love elements in it. Even horror stories, there is love that comes through in somewhere in the plot line.
Yeah,
All right.
I agree.
So now we get to hear your story that you say is a challenge to the notion that stories have a love component. Did you get beginning, middle, and end?
Barely.
All
Barely.
right. Well, let me introduce the concept to the audience. If you've never joined us before, we set a timer before the show and we spend 15 minutes writing to a prompt. Then we bring these unedited stories to the podcast and we read them to you, our caring and loving audience. And then because they haven't been edited in any way, we only give positive feedback on these stories. So, Tina, what was our prompt this week?
Blackmail, result. It was 5 words, sorry. Blackmail, result, delay, discrimination, and item. And
And
I
you're
don't think
supposed to
I
use these all in your story.
and I don't think I used any of them.
Okay, which is interesting because I would have thought, did you pick these words to make it easy for you to write in your genre, Tina?
No, I didn't. It's randomwordgenerator.com. I click the button and I use whatever random words they give me.
All right, all right.
So
Thank you.
that's whose fault it is. And I have homework from my book coach to write a backstory for my bad guy.
Oh,
So that's what this is.
all
Oh,
right. How
that's why I
exciting.
was like,
Okay.
I think it might be a little dark. So if you don't like dark, now would be a good time to turn it down.
Okay.
I don't know. I feel like I should give a trigger warning here.
All right.
Okay. The room thrummed with power as the men chanted in the ancient language. The hairs on Ivan's arms stood on end and his heart hammered in his chest. His father stood inside the circle, a look of rapture on his face. Ivan's mind swung between terror and elation as the tempo of the chanting increased, and the men raised their arms and voices. Electricity sparked across the night sky, and distant thunder lent its booming to the voices until Ivan felt the beat of it in his stomach. For a moment, Ivan forgot that he wasn't supposed to be here and almost came out from the bushes where he was hiding. From the core of his being, Ivan longed to be a part of whatever this was. Fresh jealousy surged Fresh jealousy surged inside him when he thought about the look his older brother Igor had shot him on the way out the door. Father had said that Igor was to come tonight. Igor was to be the guest of honor. Their mother had argued, shouted, threatened, and then ultimately wept, begging their father not to take Igor. For what reason, even Ivan couldn't determine. But whatever was happening, it had to be important. It had to be big. And the thing inside of him that couldn't stand for his brother to know or get something he didn't had drove him through his bedroom window and out into the dark forest, following just close enough behind his father and brother so as not to lose sight of the light of the torch. Ivan bit down on his cheeks to keep from shouting out in excitement. He rocked on his knees but kept himself from bursting into the circle with the others. But where was Igor? He couldn't see him amongst the others. Ivan wanted to see his face, know if he was feeling what Ivan was feeling, see the rapture on his face. Then his father lifted a knife high above his head, holding it with 2 hands, shouting out to Dracon to accept his
Mm.
sacrifice and bless him. Then he plunged the knife downward and blood sprayed. Ivan lost all control. He ran forward, pushing his way through the others until he stood at his father's side. That is when he finally saw the face of his brother, lying across the altar, his face pale and his eyes wide and staring. And he saw the blood draining from his neck into the bowl below the altar, and his father was screaming in rapture. Ivan fell to his knees and looked up at the Drakon carving. His eyes glowed red with fire, and it was then that Ivan knew he'd found the answer to all the longings that coursed within him.
Well, okay, so first of all, the writing was great. I love that he internalized the thunder into his stomach. That was a line. And then there was a line before that, even that got me. It was a descriptive situation that you did so well. That's typically where your work really shines, is you pick just the right things to focus on and describe for us so it doesn't become overwhelming. Yes, dark, that's not necessarily criticism, because what we're learning here is why he is the way he is. And I think that the whole scene is people are self-love. Like, I think that's the root of idolatry, don't you?
Yeah.
Because it's seeking of power that humans have no business messing with, and I think that that's what drives them into darkness that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was interesting to me that he I say this as if I didn't have control of him, right? That he felt no sadness or grief or horror at the fact that his brother was dead.
Mm-hmm.
But suddenly he realized this was what he'd been longing for. This power that he saw coming, that he perceived was coming from this statue.
Yeah, well, he obviously hated his brother um, from way back, and probably was groomed to be able to accept something like that based on what kind of father they have. I'd be curious to know about the mother. The mother wept and pleaded, but I wonder, I mean, she knew what was going on, but is she an adherent, or do women have a different role to play? Or did she please take the other son? Like, I'm curious to know.
In my mind, she was having a moment of weakness.
Oh,
Like
okay.
she's a follower of Drakon, but then when it comes to the moment where they have to take their son,
Hmm.
because part of worshiping him is to sacrifice your firstborn son.
Wow, that's a bummer. How old are these boys?
I haven't decided. Old enough to run off into the forest after his dad by himself.
Yeah. Well, which could be surprisingly young.
Yeah, I
That's
don't know.
interesting. I pictured kind of grown men, like, you know what I mean? Like, I
Yeah,
was picturing men, but I mean, you can be a boy that looks like a man,
I
but
was picturing boys, maybe tweeners,
yeah.
like tween age.
Hmm. All right. And how do you feel about how this exercise went for your purposes of your book development?
It's a little. I feel a lot like Ivan. I'm a little bit terrified and I'm a little bit excited
Yeah.
about the because one of the things that my book coach said is that I needed a bigger arc for my bad guy,
Mm.
and we needed to know why he was doing what he was doing. And so, like, it's a little bit scary to delve into this demon possessed man and try to figure him out and why he is the way he is.
But can you tell already how it's going to make your book a lot more rich?
Oh, oh yeah,
Yes,
for
there's a
sure.
lot
Like,
more to
even if
mine
I
from it.
don't put this scene in the book, even if I don't
Mm-hmm.
put any part of it in the book, um, it's gonna be in his character.
Wonderful. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can't take it out. It's like salt.
Yep.
You put it in, you can't get it out.
Yeah.
Well, really good work. And yeah, you did
Thanks.
your homework.
I did. I have
Yeah,
more
good for
homework to
you.
do, and it's due on Wednesday, so
Uh-oh.
pray for
How
me.
can you, yeah, can you give yourself a little sticker or something for
I don't
complying?
know. I don't know. I have my little gem jar, but
Oh,
my daughter hijacked it for my granddaughter for her reading.
that's how it goes. Well, I'm going to tell you right now that my internet seems to be flickering. I hope I can read you my
Yeah,
story without
every now and then a few sentences will be warbly and then you'll come
Hmm.
back.
Well,
So
let
I'm
me
going to
know if
pray
I,
really hard that you get through this whole reading and it will not go warbly on us.
yes, let me know if I have to repeat something, okay?
Okay.
All right. So I think I used two words right in the beginning and then forgot that there were words.
I completely forgot there were
So,
words, so no
all right.
judgment.
It wasn't necessary to see results of a paternity test. It wasn't necessary to threaten blackmail. It was enough to simply show up on the job site, pushing a baby stroller containing a chubby toddler with a mop of curly hair and unmistakable green eyes. The foreman saw her first and whistled. That's Jamie's boy, ain't it? Cassandra shoved past and ignored his admonishment not to go beyond the yellow ribbon which signified a hard hats only zone, as if she were stupid enough to risk the life of her child by shoving him directly into danger. Although, arguably, by confronting Jamie in this way, that was exactly what Cassandra was doing. She looked to her left, where one man was standing on a pile of what looked like pieces of broken drywall. He'd removed his hat and drew his arm up, lifting what was probably very sweaty hair up from an exceedingly pale forehead, a stark contrast to his flushed face. The man smiled, but it seemed to Cassandra it was just a squinting reaction to the bright sun, which was relentless on them both. She glanced down at the baby, who was happily munching a spit-soggy animal cracker, a baggie full of its cousins clenched tightly in his other fist. Cassandra looked over her to her right and saw two men chatting, apparently oblivious to her presence. One had a bright orange and white object tucked under his arm, a bullhorn. He gesticulated grandly with the other arm, and his audience twisted a small tuft of goatee as he listened, a rapturous expression on his face. I don't have all day, Cassandra huffed, as if she had made a reservation for use of the bullhorn, and using her foot to snap the brakes on the stroller, she crossed the space between her and the men and snatched the bullhorn. Turning and pointing it upward, she depressed the button and started to call her baby's father's name, but the sound of her voice was overpowered by a shrill alarm sound. Cassandra felt more than saw the flinching reaction of everyone in her immediate presence, but could not be bothered to care. How do you work this thing? She snapped, looking at the man from whom she'd taken it. He did not respond. He only stood there, his hands on his ears. The goateed man had recovered enough to assess the situation. You a friend of Jamie's? He asked. He spoke slower than cold maple syrup, and the sudden dose of serenity interjected into what had been a frantic morning for Cassandra shocked her like no other event might have in that moment. A friend? She half asked, half said. She looked at her boy, who gazed at her, smiled, offering her a bite of his soggy cookie. Cassandra looked back at the men, looked into the hazel eyes of the one with the tiny cookie, which was one that received loving care from its owner.
Okay, you went warbly on us.
What did you hear last?
The man with the goatee. She looked in the eyes of the man with the goatee.
Which was the goatee, which was once again receiving tender, loving care from the hand of its owner. She looked at the smaller man, the bullhorn owner, whose arms were still raised in a defensive posture. His eyes were filled with fear. What am I doing here? Cassie wondered. A friend, she finally sighed, and tried on a thin, tight smile. Yes, Jamie is my friend. And then the timer went off. In fact, the timer went off about 30 seconds before that, but I just had to wrap it up.
I'm glad I made you go back because, like, I love that part about him, tenderly stroking his goatee.
Yes,
I
yes.
can picture about 10 people I know.
If I were a man and I had that, I know I would be someone who would stroke my goatee for sure, 100%.
Yeah, and a lot of men seem to have them these days. What's up with that? That's a whole nother episode.
Tune in next week.
Special edition of the Christian Indie Writers podcast. What
you want to know what's funny? Yes, because my friend and I, we happened to see the same haircut on young men. Like everywhere we turned, the same haircut was popping up everywhere. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
So yeah, trends in facial hair kind of somehow people get the message.
And two of my boys are really struggle to grow facial hair. And I think they should just give up.
That's great. All right. Well, we have only one segment left to do. Excuse me. That's what's next. What's next, Tina, for you?
Well, I have homework from my book coach. I
Hmm.
have that, and I have to write. This is really hard. I have to write why I am the right person to write my story.
Oh.
I have to write a little mini essay.
Hmm.
And my daughter has given me reasons, and my husband has given me reasons, but I feel like it has to be my reason, and I don't know. Like, I can't, like, grab hold of one thing that I'm like, "This is why it has to be me." I just keep going back to, "Well, I needed to write a 3rd book," you know?
Hmm.
So I'm really
Mm-hmm.
struggling with that one. And then I turn in my homework on Wednesday, and we're meeting on Friday, so I'm excited about that, and I'll let you know how it goes.
Well, that sounds really exciting. I do hope that you can find, because I feel like this exercise is one of those deals where it's kind of tricking you into doing a better job and also having stick to itiveness, because once you internalize that you are the person to write the story,
Yeah.
it feels like it will do something for you, if that makes any sense, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess maybe I need to go back and say, why does this story even need to be written?
Mm.
Because then maybe I'll know why I have to be the one to write it.
It sounds
I don't know.
like you
I
brainstorming, like
I'm
info
sorry.
dumping.
You
Oh,
just cut out.
I said it sounds like you're kind of brainstorming internally.
I am. I am, and I have to write it tomorrow because it's due on Wednesday. So, and I've been thinking about it for 2 weeks. So something's gonna have to come out. I'm gonna sprint it. That's what I'm gonna
You
do.
should sprint it,
I'm just
absolutely, and then
gonna
I wonder
sprint
what will
it,
come
and I'm
out.
gonna see what comes out. And if it's totally like wacko, I won't turn it in. The sprint, I mean.
I think you should still turn it in, because I think your book coach would be able to do something with it,
Maybe.
even if it's wacko.
Because I often joke and say I don't know what I'm thinking until I write it down. So maybe I just need to write it down.
Listen, you just have to do the assignment. You don't have to necessarily get an A plus.
That's true.
C's get
A-
degrees.
And I feel like even if I don't know, that she's gonna know. It's like when I was at my therapist and we were talking about core beliefs, the core false beliefs that you have.
Mhm,
And she
mhm.
gave me this homework to figure out my core false belief. And I was like, I can't figure it out. And she goes, "You want me to tell you what it is?" I was like, "Yes, please."
That's great.
I'm
Oh,
like,
that's
I'm hoping she'll
awesome.
do that number on me on Friday.
Yeah.
So what's up with you,
Well,
Jamie?
okay, so I feel like cautious to say, but I've actually been opening some of my writing files.
Oh,
I know. So I'm actually feeling like I might be willing to start doing some of this enormous pile of work that's in front of me, because when you were talking just now about why do you need to be the one to write this story, like I pretended if I had to answer that question. And frankly, I'm the only one that can. Literally, at this point, I have so much work trapped up inside of my head that is just not available for people to look at or read. And but anyway, I'm
that makes sense.
feeling, yeah, like I'm almost to the point where I want to do the work. It's difficult though, because I told you about considering buying the Sammy supplements and playing my guitar and stuff. It's really difficult to want to do anything in my current season of life. But as things settle down and become more routine for me, I think that my desire to see these works out there walking around on their own will hopefully overcome my apathy.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
And praying for you.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah. We all
All
need
right.
prayer, like all of us.
All of us, for
Even
sure.
those people the people that you look at in your life and you think, oh, they got it all together, they probably need prayer more than any of us. I bet.
Well, it's good to know. I know for sure that we have plenty of friends who do genuinely love us as friends and not just as podcast or supporters or however you would want to put it. And if you want to reach out and become a part of our community, we would love to just take you as you are. None of us are necessarily pushing the productivity or the hustle culture. Not at this point in our lives. If you need that, I'm sure there's someone in the group who could give that to you, but we welcome you with open arms if you want to come hang out with us. And on that note, have a happy Thanksgiving, right, Tina?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
thanks for joining us. I think we've got it all covered there, Tina.
I think we do.
All right. So that concludes this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye.